Hello there, Chris here from Becker's Models, and today I'm going to show you just a little preview of how I'm painting the Kotare 132 Spitfire cockpit. Now, perhaps you can tell a difference straight away that yes, there's already some paint down, but perhaps you can tell a difference between these two greens. This is a process, it's called Spanish school, I guess you could call it, but what I'm doing before I go around and painting, like, that's not painted, it's just actually part of the process of priming. I mean, that oxygen tank, or CO2 oxygen tank, yes. But what I've done is I've gone around and I've painted obviously the aluminium and the interior green. And when I went around and did the interior green, which I think I used XF71, I then did a bit of highlights here and there with XF76, Tamiya XF76. But what I've now done, this is the first process I like to go through, and I'm just about to finish, but I'm just about to do this green panel here, is I go through with a little bit of, even though it's called dark green by Life Color, it's actually very light green. And I'm just hitting all these little frames. Okay, so all the frames that are going to hit the light, get a bit of a light effect there, because you really need to enhance the. That is not realistic at all. If you look at any photo, I'll see if I can remember to put a photo up here from. It's one that I can actually use. That's not copyrighted. You'll see that it's a uniform color throughout, but that's for something that's well lit and it's not buried inside a closed canopy with a pilot, which this one will be. So as you can see, the frames really stand out there, and the horizontal ones as well. So I've done that one and this one here. Perhaps it's catching the light. Hopefully my damn camera is not the best in the world, but I can see it, and that's all that matters. Let's go look at the bottom piece. So that's the bottom. I did a few trials. I used a weathered olive drab here from Life Color. Was a little bit too drab on that. You can probably tell on this piece here. What's that called? The radiator vent? Gun heating ducts. I love how Kotare, they name everything inside the instructions. So that's actually the second thing I've done. Let me just clear this away. The first thing I did this morning, and I recorded how long it took 45 minutes to apply all of those decals. Okay, so that's about 20 separate decals, and I messed two up. I should have painted this gauge at the bottom here. I'll close in a bit. They're still drying, they're still not perfect. I've put a little bit of microsol on them. If you are going down this track, and I assume 90% of you will, you might want to go buy a Yahoo instrument panel and bang it on straight away. I mean, like I said, it's 45 minutes of your time. All you need is a really good pair of tweezers, or two pairs actually. Some really good tweezers. You need some warmish water. These are Cartograph decals, I believe. I dipped them in the water for about 5 to 10 seconds, took them out, let them just drain on a paper towel, didn't touch them until you get into a process, you actually cut out the next ones. I sort of did a clockwise. I started at the top and went around sort of like that. It's sort of numbered intuitively, but you've got to really slow down and think. And that's something that's hard for me. I like to go to bullet a gate. So by the time you've cut out the next set of decals, you only do 2 or 3 at a time. They're ready to go. Pull them straight off the sheet, put them straight down. I use a blunt knife to place them inside the dials, make sure they're right in there. But yeah, that's gone on well enough. They're all sucked in, apart from this one. Some of them, it's really interesting. If you're watching this and you're taking notes, here's the notes to take. I would cut up some of them. These 3 main dials, the 2 pairs of 3 in the middle there, they're fine. Is that actually in focus? Bloody hell, I can't see. Excuse my French. Okay, there's a cluster over here to the left. I can't remember the what number is it, 135 I believe. Okay, you should really cut that up into 2. Some of them they give you individual dials, some of them they give you a big bunch. This cluster down the bottom right, definitely cut that in half down there and do it as 2 separate ones. I had to move that about 3 times. Make sure you paint the compass and I think that's the fuel gauge, fuel and oil indicator things first. I didn't do that, so I'm gonna have to go around and do it. I messed this one up. I lost the knob on top of that. There's always a mistake, and I didn't paint it, so I've got to go back and paint it. And you've got to paint these little knobs at the top there, so do that first. All I did with the black is I gave this center panel, so what did I use? I think I used burnt black. Yep, burnt black from Life Color. Turn it around, Chris, there it is. Just because that center panel does stand out a bit, you've got to hit it. So I'm just going to let that, I will get the highlights. You can see I've done some highlights with the XF76 on that frame. I'll very carefully touch that up soon. So the next step after doing this one, and I might see if I can do it on camera. I'm hopeless at doing this on camera. I'm talking to you right now with a magnifying loupe on my head. I look ridiculous. I love it when my kids come in the hobby room and go, "Dad, you look stupid." I don't care, I'm a dad. Well, they say, oh, yeah, anyway, dad joke. So let's see if I can do this without a loop on camera at the go. So all we're doing is this little bit of paint on the edge of the brush. I'm using number 1 Winsor Newton, and all I'm doing is I'm just hitting these frames. I'm just going to do the ones I can do without getting out of order there. So that's all I'm doing. Okay, just giving it a little bit of a highlight on the edge of the brush there. And then I also go through with a dry brush. Yes, dry brush. Yes, we're still using dry brush techniques. Why the bloody hell not? I seem to be swearing a lot this morning. That's because I've just put down 20 decals. Dry brush. Let's see if this works on camera. Okay, and that should, yeah, there you go. Getting those sort of, there's a few rivets in there. I'm overdoing it there. I don't care. Because all this is going to be buried. Because I'll show you the next bit I've got to do. Alright, so that's just a basic. Now the reason I do that is I'll go back in there with my loop because I can't get in there on a naked brush. I'll do those bits in there. The reason I do this is because once I'm finished painting, get it in camera, Chris. Once I'm finished painting, I'm going to hit this with a clear coat, a gloss, and then I'll apply a wash, and then you'll get the contrast of the, and it's very, it'll be a pin wash, not a sludge wash, so I want lots of nice shadows underneath the ribs, and then you'll get the nice highlights. You get a really nice high contrast, and that's what you're trying to get for, well, that's what I like to do when I do my cockpit. So the next bit I need to do is my old mate, Alan Deere. So I need to paint Alan, that's his body, and his head I've pre-painted the head with some Tamiya flesh. I've just done a light dusting there of his face there. So that's going to be the one that's going to take all the time and effort. So let me get stuck into this. So the next process is I'll paint all the individual parts, and the way I've done it, just give you another explanation, hopefully if you want to take notes. I mean, the Kotare instructions are wonderful. They use, this little paint drop sort of call out, but I like to write in what they are and just follow the paint guide. You have to go back and forth between paint pots, or if you've got a wet palette, sometimes you use a wet palette. I'm being a bit lazy here. I'm just using a little bit of life color straight on. Go through step by step, and that's what I've done. I've gone all the way through, added my notes with my pencil, and worked out where I've got to put stuff. So there's quite a lot, as you can tell. And then luckily they give you a lovely color paint guide at the end, so it gives you an idea of, oh, okay, what do I need to paint, what do I not need to paint. As you can see, I've missed a few bits on the cockpit panel here. I wish they'd highlighted that earlier. In fact, I don't think they do on that one. So yeah, instrument panel can do with a little bit more explanation, and that's quite involved in here. I've got quite a few decals to put down. So that's the process I'm going to do next. Paint all these parts, give it a clear coat. Perfect for putting down, well, some people say you don't need gloss before decals, but sometimes it helps. Put the decals down and do a pin wash, do a matte coat, and we're done and dusted. And then I can finally get this thing together. So about an hour and a half, 2 hours later, here we are, all done doing the detail painting on the internal cockpit bits for the Kotare Spitfire. Okay, so I find the guide that Kotare used good, but not brilliant. So if you want to, well, it is very good. Don't get me wrong. It does get a little bit confusing here and there. Excuse me. If you want to take some notes here and take some photos or screen caps or whatever and have a look what I've done, or you can just completely ignore me. I don't care. Well, I do care. I'm trying to do this to help you. I don't have to turn the camera on and explain all myself if I don't want to. I've tried to do what Kotare have said, deciphering their instructions, like what to put on the inside of these panels, because what they do, they actually show you, just to confuse it a little bit, instead of showing you the separate fuselage side pieces, let me get the right one, they actually show you it more like an image like that, which can confuse you if you're a bit dull like I am. So, oh, and I couldn't get those bloody CO2 bottles to paint quite straight grey. It's like hand painting white. It's a real pain. So they actually show you it like that. So that's how you should try to organise your painting. I don't use straight black. When it says straight black or night black, I prefer to use things like tire black, which has a little bit of blue-green in it, and my deep cockpit has a fair bit of blue in it, and also, where's the other one? He's disappeared on me, burned black, which is more of a brown. I just find that it breaks up particularly when you've got with the green there, it's not as stark, okay? And then if you wanted to, like particularly on the metal ones, you might want to do a dry brush on it, and it really pops it out. So yeah, I've tried to do what they can on that one. So I'll just bring you the other fuselage half. So this is the starboard side, and again, with my chunky fingers, I was able to do most of the painting. Where does that go? Go like that. There we go. Okay. So there's a little bit of red there. That's that my pale metal is a little bit too thick, but it should come up all right under a wash. I mean, I prefer to paint on the parts. Some of you prefer to paint on the sprue and then glue the parts to the thing. Go for it. What else have I done? Okay, so the bottom is all done with the battery case, and just taking out a few highlights and the flare rack, which you never see anyway, and just a few of the other pieces. I'll just show you the control stick. I didn't do too bad a job. Remember, I had to modify this control stick because my Spitfire is going to be doing a huge roll to the port, so the top half was taken off, and that's done like that. So what I'm going to do now is, alongside 7 or 8 or 10 other cockpits that I've actually got in the booth, believe it or not, I'm going to gloss coat all that and give it a nice clear coat to take for a take or a wash. And while that's drying, I'm going to start painting. Well, I have started. I've just put down some of the parts that they say. So the headrest and the regulator there on the back. Oh, I've just discovered I've missed a bit, and I might even have oh no, yeah, I've missed a bit. Got a paint there. So that's going to take as long or longer than what it does to do the inside of the cockpit. So let me get the clear coat on this, and I'll show you what it looks like, and I'll apply a wash as well. So here's the cockpit nearly done. I've got to add a few stencils. I forgot to put them on before I put the flat coat on. So what I've done here is the clear coat, just a basic gloss, and then some enamel washes using Tamiya black basically. So you can see, after doing all the detail painting and then doing those highlights beforehand on those ribs there and anything that sort of sticks up, that with the wash, it's only a pin wash, not a sludge wash. I don't try to put it everywhere, but as you can see, let's just show this little piece here at the back. Okay, so you're getting a nice shadow effect underneath some of these ribs. Okay, yeah, you're getting a nice contrast there, so that's the sort of angle you're looking at like that. You're not really going to see too much of this cockpit when it's all buttoned up, but you know, it has the desired effect. The instrument panel is also done. I put a bit of gloss inside the dials there just to give that sort of a glass effect. Okay, so that's almost done. I've forgotten to put stencils on, so I'll do that next, but after that's done, I am finished with this cockpit, plus another 10 that I've been working on. So putting on those little stencils and decals does transform this a little bit more. I haven't locked these in yet, but they're all nice and dry, and they were a bit of a pain to put on, but they do really, really improve the look. Even include some of the documents in those folders. That's, I assume that is. So yeah, that's looking pretty good, and then there's just a few to put in on the inside of the inside there, and one more for good luck. And there we have it. So this is how I'm going to do the pilot. Now, painting pilots whilst they're on their seat may seem like a really stupid idea, but I prefer to do it this way because, as I explained, I think in another video or wherever, and as you can tell, see how his hands are spaced correctly. I do all my aircraft, or almost all my aircraft, in flight, so he has to have his hands on the controls. In fact, the controls are just over there, and the throttle just so, and it's really hard to do that and glue him in afterwards after you've painted him. I just prefer to do it here. Anyway, I can hold on to the bulkhead while I'm painting. So, why is he white? Okay, he was primed in black. I like to just use black most of the time when I'm priming. But the reason why he's white, I'll just show you here. This is I'll zoom out. This is the ICM pilot set that I originally bought for the, it was recommended by John Colasante to get this one. And this pilot here, you get 3 pilots in the box. This pilot here in the middle, it works perfectly if you are wanting to pose this the aircraft on the ground, because he's signaling there ready to take off. But for me in the air, no, it doesn't really work. I was thinking about doing a bit of a modification, but it didn't really work. I ended up using the aero bonus. But what the good thing about this set, and you could still use this set for doing, you know, on-ground diorama, these are lovely figures, they're really well done, they're just plastic, they're not resin, is they give you a nice colour call out. So I have painted quite a few RAF pilots before, and I've got a selection of colours that I'll use. One thing to note, they're not all the same, okay? You can use a bit of artistic license, and in fact what I'm going to be doing with this one, this seated one doesn't have a life jacket. Since I'm painting Alan Deere when he was going over to Dunkirk, I'm going to assume he's wearing a life jacket, a yellow life jacket, so that's why I'm painting white on the inside. If you know how to paint yellow with a figure, paint white first, okay? Oh, we zoomed in a little bit too quick there, upside down, no, too far, Miss Jane. Okay, so the way I paint figures is from the inside out. It's a lot easier to do that because, you know, as I'm getting the brush in there and digging in there, I'm going to hit his arms. See, look, I hit his arms, I hit his legs, and sometimes I might even hit the seat. And because I'm using acrylics, I'm using life color acrylics. If I do brush into those, because that's lacquer paint on the seat, now, the instructions do say that you could do this seat in black, but as far as I can tell, this particular one, it was just the same colour as the rest of it. Oh, that's what I'm going to say. So, and you can barely see the seat cushion in behind there. I might quickly get a colour on there because this is only the first coat of white. I need to do a few coats of white. White on black actually works really well. But if I was to do this again, I would actually probably spray this. I would actually just mask this off and just spray the inside white. Alright, I've skipped ahead. You can tell that this yellow is much more vibrant than what I was getting originally, even on the sides. What I had to do, I had to resort to spraying good MRP. This stuff just goes down over anything. You don't need to put white base or anything. It goes straight on black, and it's just beautiful. So I got out the old the airbrush, put the Mac valve down to the lowest setting possible, and just very slowly built up the yellow. And it's much more vibrant. And then of course with that pretty much done, I started to do his jacket. So the way I've done this, and you can see I've actually done, hopefully the camera is picking up, I have done a little bit of shading in there. So I painted the jacket in dark brown, okay, so just a few light coats of the dark brown, and then when the paint was still a little bit wet, I did a light one of, this is extra dark brown, it's actually worn off, but as you can see what I've done is just inside the underneath, so underneath the crease of his arm there, and all the way in those little creases there, and down below of course, because it sticks out a little bit. I've got to do this side, I'm just in there, I've got to do in there, but you can just see underneath all those creases, I've just laid in a little layer of the extra dark brown. So what I might do is dry brush on a little bit of this is Vietnam Tan, is one of my favourite light browns, just to get those sort of highlights in that jacket, and that's pretty much done. At the same time, while in between that, because you do 2 or 3 things at once while you're waiting for coats to dry, this sort of woolen padding around his neck and also on the boots, I pre-did those in white, but I've now gone over them with this dust colour, which is sort of an off-white, pinkish, yellowish white, and it's done a really good effect for that sort of wool sort of thing. So now it's just time to do details, but again, as I was going ahead, now like I said, I'm not the best figure painter in the world, but I think I've managed to get a good likeness here. A couple of eyes, a few shadows, a few highlights there on his face, and this resin head doesn't really have very good goggles. I've actually drawn that in. The goggles are just flat, almost like they're not even goggles, just like a slip. So I've just painted that in, and I'm happy enough with it. That's good enough. There's a little bit of shading, a little bit of wear and tear on top of his helmet there. I just stippled on some dark brown and a pattern over the red brown. I'm happy enough with that. So I'm just going to go ahead and do the rest here. So we need to do the seat belts, the straps for the. I think the straps for the life jacket are still stay yellow. I might do a different colour, I'm not sure. I've also got to do his pants, so they're going to be, I think, in a field blue, RAF field blue. And also I've done his shirt, but I think that's way too dark. I think I need to go for a lighter colour. There's no tie there, but I think I'll go for a light blue. So I'll just mix a light blue up. And the gloves have to be done the same way as the helmet with the red leather gloves. So yeah. Let's get stuck into doing some more, but I'll just see if I can do a little bit of this on camera with the Vietnam Tan. So I'll try it. So I want to get a very light, get that bottle out of the way. So what I want to do is hit the highlights there. just where the creases are at the edge of the brush. Can you see that? Hopefully I'm doing that right. And again, I want a nice wet brush. I don't want a lot of paint. I'll do the other side. I've yet to come up with a suitable camera angle that I can actually do this with my loupe on, because I have to use a magnifier. My wife's made me some new glasses, but I'm just waiting for them to be delivered. And they've got, I think, quite a bit of power into them. But so all I'm just doing there is just hitting the tops of those creases, and that should blend in nicely like that. That's all you have to do, just for that subtle sort of shading, and that's good enough for me. I'm not a great figure painter by any, God, no way, by any stretch. Well, there he is. I'm going to call that a night. I think I'm more than happy with that. He's come out okay. Haven't gone nuts with the shading and everything. I've done a little bit of liner work there. I felt that the belts around the life jacket needed just a little bit more highlighting, so I've just done a little bit of lining with a not quite black brush there. I've tried to paint behind his seat. I haven't done the best job in the world, but the head's on there, and I've got that last stencil just behind there. I've literally just put that on now, so that's the last one done. So that technically is the cockpit painted and ready for assembly. Thanks for watching. I hope you got something out of that. I hope to have the next video up on how I actually motorize and motorize, that's right, and get this thing up in the air, because he's actually going to be posed something quite like that head on. So yeah, till next time, happy modelling.
Hello, Rabbit Leader. I thought you might come in from the sun.
Don't think, don't just glance. Look, search for the bastards, and never fly in a straight line or you're a dead duck.